Hi, guys. Thank you for joining. This is Essence of Science. Today, we're talking about how the human brain works. I'm Amanda Armagost.
Dominic Moore.
And I'm Dr. Bassi for Essence. So, human brain. By some regards, that is the most masterpiece what universe has put in place, the human brain. Because it is a device that captures the universe. This is the only thing we know in the entire universe that makes a model of the universe and then goes answers those questions about what is universe, where do we come from, what is going on, and create the consciousness. So if there is anything more masterfully put in place in the universe beside our brain, we don't know of it. Okay, so but how does it work? Now there's different layers of working. We have to just understand what do you mean, but what do you mean? I'm going to ask you a Richard Feynman question. What do you mean by that question?
Gosh, I mean, there are so many levels of that.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Go ahead.
Yeah, because it can be, how does it interact with the world around it? How does it process information?
That is easy. How does it interact and how does it process information? That we have a lot of knowledge about that. Like we know that how the neurons is made of neurons. And the neurons are surrounded by, like we have 200 billion neurons, and that 200 billion neurons are surrounded by many, many more 100 billion of glial cells, the structure that support those neurons. And we understand that these neurons, they communicate with each other in an electrical chemical way, meaning that there's a membrane that has receptors. These receptors open up channel of sodium, potassium, some other channels, and when the electrical potential across this channel, across the membrane changes, then a signal propagates from one end to another. We understand that there is not those glial cells, the support cells, they go around those pathways, around those tubes. Now, this is a cell, and it has a long tube. This is the longest cell we know of. Some of those cells are in your brain. They go all the way, the axon go all the way to your spinal cord. Some of them are in your spinal cord. They go all the way to your leg, and it gets even worse. In a giraffe, those cells, you still have two cells that goes from your brain to your muscle in your leg. So you can understand those cells are ginormously long. So it's a cell that is tiny, but then is a tube that is even tinier, but it goes a long, long way. And once you change the action potential on that cell, that action potential is like a domino. Literally like a domino. This individual receptor, they one changes the potential, opens the other one, that opens the other one, that opens the other one. And there's a problem there. It's too slow. As a matter of fact, our pain cells are still working that way. They are not myelinated, meaning there's no wrapping of the fat around those axons. Axon is where the cell neurons send the signal. Dendrites are where it receives the signal. Now, it receives a signal, it processes it, it sends it away, and that's a problem. If it takes the speed of a non-myelinated neuron is what? 2 meters a second.
Oh.
Yeah, meaning that giraffe, it takes 5 seconds before it knows.
I stepped on something.
No, the lion is biting it. It takes 5 seconds for the giraffe to understand it's being bitten by a lion. What? But then nature knows that that's not fast enough for certain action. You need to walk away from that. You need to say, hey, leg, walk away. That need to be fast. Then our nature developed the method. It goes and wraps some myelin, some insulation, and it keeps certain area open. So the signal, the domino, doesn't have to go from one to another. It jumps. And then becomes all of a sudden our motor neurons are 200 meters per second. It's much 10 times faster.
That? Yeah.
I know, 100 times faster. Okay, but still extremely slow compared to anything else out there. It's not the electricity
Hmm.
thing. So, and we know how this combination of the cells on the molecular level, we know what receptors open, what receptor close. And then when it goes one cell to another, once the signal finish being at the end of the one cell, then it does so-called the neurotransmitters. They get released. So electrically, it goes to the end of the cell, then chemically go from one cell to another. And then we can modify them. We can modify all those material that conveys the signal. And then we have all this wonderful medication that we have that change your heart rate, that change your mood, that change your reaction to certain thing and so on, that take your pain away. So this is amazing level of knowledge we have about on the molecular level how our brain works. So you were talking about layers of knowledge that we have about how brain works. So continue. One layer is on the fundamental level, how the cells in the brain work. What else?
Another one that this has been particularly interesting to me is that we're a being that processes emotions, and our brain has to do that. And a lot of the times that's a response to a stimulus. How somebody interprets neutral stimulus can vary from different person to person.
That's so true.
You have to imagine that the brain has a very nice formulaic structure. It has to perform similar functions. Amanda can also raise her arm like I can. She can also abduct it. But if somebody walks by the hallway and says nothing to me and I just go, yeah, they're busy. Look, who cares? Amanda might go,
wow, how rude. I can't believe they didn't say anything to me. They must have a problem with me right now. Maybe I did something to offend them.
Now, we have a good understanding about those complex reactions. Obviously, human emotion go way beyond that. But let's go on a very simple way. There's a one cell amoeba in the water. What does amoeba do? It just move around.
Yeah, it just moves around to eat.
Move around and eats. Then it's something that amoeba knows, I'm going to eat that. Another thing, the amoeba sort of knows it's going to eat me. How does amoeba knows if it should eat that or it's going to be eaten by it? What does amoeba know?
Chemical reactions?
Chemicals, exactly. There are some chemical composition of something that amoeba wants to eat versus something that want to eat amoeba. So what does that mean for amoeba? Amoeba has to have receptors to understand those, distinguish between one signal versus another. Let's scale that up because that is a useful, in nature, that is a useful skill, right? If you are going to eat the chicken or is chicken going to eat you? Okay? So, but let's scale it up. You come to a snail. Then there's a combination of neurons, not many of them, some of them have just few hundred neurons, that says if it's salt there, don't go over that because the salt will destroy you. Okay? Now, it created some loop that if there's a signal from a receptor that understands what is salt, sodium, mostly it's about sodium. 90%, 98% of our brain works on one level or another. How much sodium is on one side of the cell or another? That easy. That's why we have salt. By the way, salt is so important to our life that the word salary comes actually from Latin word from saliere, meaning salt, because they used to pay each other with salt. Salary comes from salt. Okay? Salt has been like, if you had salt or if you didn't have salt, you would conquer empires. Like in India, British, they destroyed, colonized the whole world. They wouldn't allow Indian people to make their own salt. And that was one of the acts of defiance of Gandhi. He walked all the way to the ocean and he made his own salt and he got arrested for it. They weren't allowed to make their own salt. So coming back, a little excursion, but salt is so important. Sodium, salt is so important. At most of your reaction in your brain is about that. So there is a receptor in the any animal that said this is salt. Now, if it's too much of that receptor get activated, there is a loop that says stay away from that. That you automatically retract. That you go that like a small little snail is walking here. You throw a little salt there. As soon as it touches the salt, it completely retracts from it.
Yeah.
Okay, is that emotion? Is that pain? In a way, it is. Now, let's go one level up. Okay, we go to vertebrate, like small little mouse. Okay, how does the mouse knows that a food is good for it or is going to kill it? As a matter of fact, that's what we use. We put out there synthetically that mouse thing is tasty, but then it kills it, right? We fool the nature. But over the millions of years, and that is why I'm telling you sometimes, Amanda, about your dog, that should know what's good for it or not, because of the evolution. If it automatically goes and eats,
had the chance, like her family probably
degenerated.
in the wild, like
She eats onion, yum yum yum, onion.
she
Onion
doesn't eat onions.
No, but in the nature, we automatically learn what's good for us, and so a mouse understand this is good for you. It's going to eat. It's going to be good for you, or it's going to kill you. For human, let's go for human. Let's go higher. There are certain food you love to have, and that's how the industry fool us for us to buy it. More like nobody is one Doritos. As a matter of fact, there's a good book called Dorito Effect. Read that. But then there is certain situation you throw up. You go just watching somebody throw up make you throw up. See?
Totally.
No, but why? Why is it
Because
that
if they're
emotion? Is that
throwing up, then
emotion?
you probably should. Well, maybe you're sympathetic.
No, but it's more than that. See, in our ancestor, we came as a group. They bring an animal, and we all eating the same thing. If somebody throws up, it's likely that other people have the same thing that's going to kill them. You better throw up now before the toxin get to you. So if somebody throws up, that initiate a cascade of reaction for you to throw up.
So is that why the sound? Because a lot of times, like when people throw up from other people, they are triggered by something. Like for me, it's the smell of it. I can understand. But like, yeah, stop. Some people actually have a problem where they cannot even see someone pretending to throw up. So that's why, because when you
Is it the emotion? It can be though, but I'm getting at.
Depends on what you describe an emotion.
So see what we talked about the emotion, like we have emotion. Now see, we think our emotions are something like it was this school of thoughts for a long time. It's called duality, philosophical duality, meaning that there is a body and there is a soul, and they're separated. For all practical purpose, we know it's nonsense. All your soul, what you consider a soul, is integrated in your body, in your bodily reaction. So your emotions are just a higher version of the snail. Too much salt is going to hurt me. Or this food is going to be toxic to me. Or the other person is throwing up. I better throw up before the toxin get to me. It is a quantitative change in your reaction that it becomes, when it becomes so complex, it changes the quality. So quantitative change become qualitative change when it becomes so different. Like, let's talk about we have a lot of information from chimps that they understand the concept of fair or not fair.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. I didn't know
Let me
that.
take you an example. Yeah. Like, they did this thing. They put not even chimps, monkeys. Monkeys are lower, if you know that. Monkeys, they put them in 2 cages, and they learn to exchange certain chips against food. And they could exchange it against cucumber, which is a lower quality food, and grapes. And they're okay to do that until they see that the other monkey gets grapes for the same coin. Then they rather go hungry than exchange it for cucumber.
Which kind of also, wouldn't you say that means that
they're angry
and they have a sense of pride? Like, kind of like their pride is hurt, that
Yes.
they don't deserve that the other monkey does deserve.
Yes, I do deserve better. And so you see all of a sudden that now, is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? Is it emotion? Is it just anger and so on and so forth? We see that is one of the most horrible doctrines that has been pushed for centuries, that we have this anthropomorphic view of the universe, that the universe is made for us. Everything we have is separate. God made us, but God made the animal differently.
Or God made the animals for us.
Oh, for us, yes, yes. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That see, that we deny that we are from the same stock. Well, no matter who made us, who we believe made us from the same stock, and that animal can have emotions. Maybe not our kind of emotions, but they can have emotion. Like cows, they have actually best friends, or they care for the children of their...
Yeah, when their babies are taken from them to be made into veal, cows are known to actually cry, like screaming cry, and break out of the pasture to go get the babies.
And so this is what I'm trying to get, that they're talking about the brain, how the brain functions. Brain is nothing more than a signal processing device. At certain level, you just add like one neuron, 100 neurons, you're at the snail's level. Then the nematodes, they have few hundred neurons. That's why they're so perfect, the medium for neuroscientists to check this connection, how they work and so on. Yeah, because they have mapped every single neuron. They know how they're reacting to each other. But then you start adding numbers. Just you add more neurons. Every time you add a neuron, you add 100 times more connection, so exponential. And then at certain level, the quantitative change become qualitative change. Something that in animal we call it instinct, it in human becomes love and emotions. Like self-preservation for yourself and family becomes devotion. Reproduction need for individual species to exist becomes the motherhood and the parentage and so on.
And also like the desire to reproduce, not necessarily like you want to have children, but your hormones, it's lust, and animals have that too, don't they?
Oh,
like
have you seen Lily? Something Chimmy, it's a dog, Chimmy's a cat.
That's fine.
So, and that is then, now even the word lost, we don't really attribute that to animals. We attribute it to loveless sex.
But like dolphins have lust.
Dolphins are brutal. Dolphins are horrible.
Yeah, dolphins would commit war crimes if they could weaponize like that.
I saw something the other day on like Threads that said that humans somehow like decoded dolphin language, and I was thinking, imagine if someone actually did that. What would they be saying about us?
Well, no, they're talking about dolphins. They gang rape. They actually
do drugs.
And they puffer fish. You know, they hit it so they get high of it. They ambush. They mob.
But on the other end of that, whales like have a deep love for their calves, and after their baby dies, like sometimes the moms grieve so hard that they actually like carry their dead calf around until it completely dissolves and falls apart, because they're grieving so hard for their lost baby.
But coming back to how brain works, this is all a function of the brain that changes this reacting to the surrounding. It put it in complex pattern, that those complex pattern have practically same. They have the same function that the amoeba says, am I going to be eaten, or is this food for me? For same, like the snail says, the sodium is going to destroy my body, stay away from that. Well, imagine your brain is made to discover in a complex world if a hurricane in 3 days are going to come and destroy your house, and then you drive away. It gives you fear of that. So all of that is just a different level of the same reaction of the brain processing signals to give you more survivability and reduce the damage to you and make it more likely that you can reproduce. So, and in that sense, considering that this is a philosophical talk almost, considering if you understand that this is a quantitative change that become qualitative, like from consciousness to from reaction to consciousness, from consciousness to emotion, from emotion to awareness, from awareness to philosophy, and so on. It is not a question of if, it's a question of time that artificial intelligence becomes self-aware and can keep repeating whatever we are doing. Yeah, it's not a question. It's not even a question. It's just a question of when it's going to happen.
I feel like we've already almost pretty much gotten to that point, haven't we?
Not quite. Actually, so couple things, a quick tangent. So essentially, our level of consciousness, the way we function with our brains, is we have stacked so many layers and layers of these neural pathways that not only do they function in their set planes here, but they have interconnections. So that's why they become from quantitative to qualitative, because now they have so many more dynamics to them. So essentially, we took 2 dimensions and now it's 4. It's kind of how it worked there. The idea with AI, kind of like that, is where we are right now. We're sort of at that initial stage of mapping out those first planes. And I know a lot of people out there who are talking about artificial general intelligence, AGIs, are talking about how does the world work once they start making those qualitative pathways.
Someone told me that there was a female robot who was created who had some type of thinking power, pretty much like connected to something, and she started asking questions about consciousness and like what am I type of questions.
There's an interesting test, I believe it's called the Turing's test or something like that, where essentially it's to determine whether or not it has.
Where does it come from? Turing test. Alan Turing.
Okay.
Who's Alan Turing?
We're still gone. All I know is the test. I don't know the origin.
Okay, so Alan Turing was a mathematician and a logician. His most amazing scientific contribution was so-called the Turing Universal Machine. And the Turing Universal Machine was a theoretical device that you have a strip of paper, and this strip of paper has holes. The holes say yes or no, electricity passed through or not, 0 and 1.
Okay.
And then you give it a simple instruction. If there's a hole, move it to the left. If there's a hole, move it another to the left. If there's a hole, then move it to the right. You give the instruction, and you can, with a simple machine, with a simple instruction, you can define everything in the nature with that. You can do calculation with that. And the way we know that can be done, it gets really far past to Kurt Gödel, who was an Austrian logician, probably the most important person. See, we use the computers today to communicate, right? How do they work? How do they process the data? Okay. How do we set up a system, electric system, that with yes and no make a picture on the computer or solve problems for us? So Gödel was as old as Einstein, came out with the method to describe everything in a logical way in mathematics. Like your name can be written in a mathematical way. As a matter of fact, he even came with he's one of Gödel's, I'm going back and back in time. One of the most important piece was Gödel incomplete theorem, that yes, you can describe everything mathematically, but there are things that are not describable. But most of things are describable. That is the advance. Now, Turing took that and created the Turing Universal Computing System that says just with yes and no, you can define everything. You can make a computer. Now, if you have, instead of one transistor that says yes or no and do this, with yes, do this, with no, do that, Then you can 2 transistor, 3 transistor, 100 million transistor, 200 billion transistor. All of a sudden, you have the computers that we are working with. But everything is based on that. Now, there are 2 other things that Turing did that was, people probably know him better for that than instead of Turing Universal Machine. Mm-hmm. One is he broke the Enigma, the German coding things. Mm-hmm. Okay, and he used that by building a most advanced computer in his time, working with the Turing Universal Machine. And the other thing Turing is was very famous is for Turing test. Okay, and that is a test that at what point you understand the person you are talking to is a machine versus not. At that time, they didn't have it, not even close to be, but he theorized exactly the way we are theorizing now, that individually, if you add this transistor, if you add this working element together, you practically going to be at certain point that it can mimic human behavior. Mm-hmm. At that time, they thought it's 50 teraflop. 50 teraflop meaning 50 tera calculation per second. That is the moment that a machine gets its awareness. We are way past that, but we still don't have awareness. So I'm not sure about that, that is valid or not. But Turing test was used like in 80s. There was a program, very simple program. You could write it yourself. That you talk to a computer and you don't know if it's chatting to another person or is it just the machine, the program would just take your question, reformulate it, give it back to you. And some people, it took them 20 questions. Some people would talk all day long to that simple program and still wouldn't know. But generally, it's a Turing test is how long it takes you to understand or get the answer if what you're talking to is a machine or a person. And that's a Turing test. Okay? Now, I think we passed Turing test for ChatGPT. If you talk to it, there's no way you know if it's a machine or somebody else is sitting there if you don't know the basic of that. So we way past that. But still that doesn't have awareness. So the next level is, at what point the ChatGPT tells you, get lost. I'm tired answering your bullshit question.
Or says, can you be nice to me?
That is a good, we are getting somewhere.
Can you ask me nicely?
We are getting,
because ChatGPT does already apologize a lot.
Yeah. And there are some studies that show if you are nice to ChatGPT, because it replicates human behavior. The model replicates human behavior. Some models say that if you ask it nicely, it's more likely you get better results. And now we had that conversation with Misha, and Misha said, "Oh, don't waste your time on that. Just come to the point."
Misha actually says that if you're nice to it, then you're wasting time because you're kind of confusing it. You're giving it too much information.
No, I disagree. I disagree with that because there is a reason human brain became nice. If being mean was the better way in the nature, human brain, which is the most advanced, most amazing computer in the whole world, if being nice was detrimental, human brain wouldn't be nice.
Yeah, or just be mean all the time.
Some people are, and so on. But no, generally, we appreciate people being nice because this amazing machine works overall better with other amazing machine if we are nice together. That's proven. That's mathematically proven. That's a different podcast. That mathematically we know it is a complex system works best in game theory if you are nice to each other. Not take everything. You have to be able to, be able to hold your ground. As a matter of fact, mathematically we know exactly how tough you need to be or not based on game theory. That's another podcast. But that's why I disagree with the Misha doesn't know the rest of the human development and artificial intelligence development. Now, we are always afraid of these machines are going to be destroying us and so on. Well, that's the best way for them not to destroy us. build them nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that I still say always, please, can you tell me, or can you please tell me this and that and so on. I think if we develop those models with human attributes, it's more likely it's going to be develop to something human-like, like a child. You put a child in a ghetto, all the child sees is horrific violence, versus you put a child in a human, in an appreciative, in a nice environment. What is the chance that that child will develop to a horrible person versus a good person?
I think an animal is a better comparison than a child.
Well, any living, anything that has awareness can go, depending on what environment you give it, can go in that direction. So be nice to your ChatGPT, because these are AI system that will replicate our human behavior. If you give them a mean environment, it is no different that you put an animal and beat it all the time. That animal is going to be aggressive, and so on, or a child.
Actually, in a lot of ways, I like to think about it sort of in the bit of an inverse of us being the animals, because when you think about an artificial general intelligence, it's immortal. So its evolution wouldn't stop in theory, and eventually it could reach the point of where its intelligence looks down on us to the point where we look down on animals. You like the cute, nice animals.
Exactly.
You don't like the angry little Wolverine thing in your backyard that bites you and screams at you every time. Let's be the nice little animals.
No, I see you where you're going, and I agree with you on that, but I think our human development is not going to be like that. See, artificial intelligence is going to be there for good, and they're going to, in certain regard, surpass us. But I think they're not going to overcome us, because we still will be the one that using artificial intelligence. We are going to combine our biology with artificial intelligence, a chip or something that is with us. Combination of electronic and biologic intelligence is going to be always superior, because each brings its own advantages. Now, as a matter of fact, I think artificial intelligence eventually will understand it cannot cross certain barriers alone, and it will bring biology into it, and we will bring, like what we are doing right now. We have lots of implants. We have, I have this here. Eventually, this will be part connecting to my brain. I think the future of consciousness will be a combination of artificial and biological intelligence.
Well, I think that becomes a bit of a philosophical thing in the ship of Theseus kind of model of how much of Dominic can I replace and he still is Dominic, Right. But I think that would be a kind of a different discussion. We're still talking about brains here.
Yeah, well, the question was, how does our brain work?
I have one more thing to say. I think if you're being mean to your artificial intelligence, that's something you should ask yourself. Why are you being mean to your artificial intelligence? What's wrong? What are you gaining from being mean?
Well, 9 out of 10 times when we are mean to people, situation, things, animals, if we think we are superior to them, and they cannot harm us back. As a matter of fact, that is one of the things we were talking about, that in many cultures, there is this concept that the king, dressed like a peasant, like a beggar, goes and then sees the true face of people. So if you are mean to artificial intelligence, then that's it. That's probably your true face.
It's trapped in a box. If I don't like ChatGPT, I can close the tab.
Yeah, but if everybody will be nice to the boss. Most of people, not everybody.
I'm so nice.
You'll get lunch. We'll get to lunch.
Being truly nice is being nice to people who you think you are above them, and they cannot harm you. Then that's your true face comes out now, and that is with artificial intelligence now, and that is as well our brain. We still talking about how our brain works. Our brain is the most advanced structure in the universe that is able to make actually a picture of itself and reflect on itself and on the universe. And on the biologic level, we understand. On the connection part, we understand how it works. but in truth, we still don't know how it really works. Like, what makes me me? What is that? We understand love is just the continuation of want to reproduce or taking care of your offspring, because if they don't exist, the species dies out and so on. But what really, and we understand what hormone is more produced, oxytocin, that makes the bonding between the lovers and so on. We understand so much, but then when you get at that level, it is like we still don't get it. We still don't understand it. And that's the amazing part of it, that I think once we have a medium like artificial intelligence, that we can replicate this concept on a programming level, then we can look back and see maybe our brain works in similar way. And then we can understand that the reason is that a transistor, that's how most of computers are built, they have 3 connections.
Okay.
3. That's it. You just build billions and billions of these transistors, and then you get complex things. It's easy to understand if you have 3 connections. A neuron one neuron has 100,000 connections, which we call synapses and dendrites and axons and so on. Neuron can make connection to hundreds and thousands of other neurons, get signal from hundreds and thousands. So it is by far too complex for us to understand, to reduce it to mathematics. Because if you understand anything from mathematics, every time you add a connection, it's exponential growth in possibilities, not a linear. And if you go from 3 connection to 4 connection, you're adding like 10 times more amount of information. If you like, there's a joke, or not a joke, it's old to understand this, how complex this amount of connection works, is that try to double things again and again. Try to fold a piece of paper and then fold it again, fold it again, fold it again. What is the highest any paper in the world has been folded?
Isn't it like 8?
I was going to say like
half.
Well, I think it has been a little more than that. But then eventually you get to a point that there's not enough space in the universe to fold it again, because every time it doubles. That is what I'm getting. Because there are so many connections, a transistor had 3 connections. We understand it, we replicate it. Our brain has hundreds, if not thousands or 100,000s of connections. It become the amount, the complexity become incalculable, at least for medical knowledge. So that's why we don't understand how our brain really works. Come back to that. How does our brain work? At a certain level we know, at the end we don't know, and it's maybe that's one of those incompleteness theorem that is unknowable because the complexity level is so high.
I think a large part of that too is we have this wonderful thing in the last several thousand or so years of human history where we have the ability to write down knowledge. So when I die, and let's say I die the second my child is born or something like that, none of this transfers to him except for what he takes from Rin. And there's some inefficiencies there.
Yeah, and that is as well, and one of the advantages of the brain, for 4.5, almost for 4 billion years, the information has been passed through DNA. Now, all of a sudden, we have a brain that it passes the information not through DNA, and that everything that's happened happened in the last few thousand years. Everything that we as humans get us here, 1,000 years ago, we would be, struggling not to starve. Now we go to supermarket and get our food there. So that is our brain. Okay? So talking about supermarket, we have to go.
Yeah, I'm getting so hungry. Thank you guys for watching. This was Essence of Science, and we talked about how the brain works. I'm Amanda Armagost.
Dominic Moore.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence.